next up is Karl Lindholm talking to us today about the many fronts of baseball integration 1946.
Thank you, Lisa. And Dan, what a wonderful presentation. Comprehensive and thought-provoking. I feel a little bit like the number 2 hitter in a lineup. I just want to move some people along, you know. But mine is perhaps a combination of trying to acknowledge some things that are not acknowledged sufficiently, some aspects of the history of baseball history as regards integration. I'm going to use the term integration when I talk about Jackie Robinson and some of the other players. I do know that Jackie Robinson reintegrated baseball. Baseball was not segregated until 1887, but I think I'll defer a little bit to the popular impulse. And so understand that when I talk about Jackie's integration or some of the other players that I think ought to be acknowledged in this discussion, that's what I have in mind. I think the official date most of us consider that organized baseball was integrated is April 15th, 1947, when Jackie stepped on the field at Ebbets Field, went to first base. And now every year Jackie Robinson Day is on April 15th, and the myth of Jackie Robinson will be recounted again and again. And I use the term myth here not as a falsehood, but as a story which animates our culture. You could argue that there are earlier dates when Jackie Robinson integrated Major League Baseball, and I will, and discuss other important dates in Major League Baseball's integration in 1946, keeping in mind also that baseball's color line, in the words of Don Rogerson, color line was porous indeed. So here are the 4 fronts, I would call the 4 fronts of organized baseball's integration in 1946. Top slide is Delorier Field. Who's got it? Delorier. I'll say it wrong again, but thank you. You get it right this time. In Montreal, it's now that plaque with a school behind it. It was demolished in 1968. And then second is the Jackie Robinson ballpark. I've seen a number of games in Montreal. I've been to Parc Jarry and many times to the Big O Olympic Stadium in Montreal, as I live in Vermont, and Montreal is the closest major city. But never saw a game in Delorier Stadium. But I did get to Jackie Robinson ballpark 2 years ago when I was down watching some spring training games, Middlebury College spring training games. And it was just a delightful experience. And I'll talk a little bit about Jackie in Daytona Beach. Anybody know who that slide is on the lower left, where that slide is in the lower left? Nashua, New Hampshire. You been there? Yeah. Yeah, it's a wonderful stadium. Holman Stadium in Nashua, New Hampshire, where Don Newcomb and Roy Campanella played in 1946. And anybody been to this park? Stade Kilarama, I guess. It's in Trois-Rivières, Quebec, about equidistant between Montreal and Quebec City. And it's where 2 of Brooklyn's 5 black players that summer played most of the season. And so we'll go to these 4 spots. Delorier Stadium was a 20,000-seat sports stadium built in 1928, demolished, as I said, in 68. And the Dodgers were affiliated there from 1939 to 1960. The Montreal Royals' first year was actually 1897. So the Montreal Royals were around for a long time. It's at the corner of Delorier Street and Ontario Avenue East. The Montreal Alouettes played also in the same stadium. Jackie's regular season debut, his opening day, was April 18th, 1946 at Roosevelt Stadium in New Jersey, playing against the Jersey City Giants. Don't need to talk much about that because it's been recounted so beautifully in a number of texts, particularly Jules Teigel's. Jules Teigel starts baseball's great experiment. The first chapter is Jackie's opening day of heroics in Jersey City, where I just like to say it. He got 4 hits, scored 4 runs, had 3 RBIs, a home run, 2 steals, and 2 of the runs he scored were on balks. He so disoriented the pitcher, so distressed the pitcher that he balked him home twice. It was fun, and that's an opening day. That's an integrated integration of baseball story at the minor league level that I think is I always enjoy hearing. Slide 2. Actually, that's slide 1. See, I put a lot of slides on a lot of images on one slide, because what Dan did in his talk, I'm utterly incapable of doing. I can never get the text to align with the slide. So I'll just put as many slides as I can and still make mistakes. So that's Jackie Robinson in Delormier. And that's Delormier, as I mentioned. And this is wonderful. The handshake of the century, as some people have called it. It's now, there's a statue in Youngstown, Ohio, the hometown of George Shuba, who's shaking Jackie's hand there. I sometimes show to my classes, my Negro League classes, I just start with that photograph of Jackie and ask the students to note the different elements. Shuba's posture, Jackie's a smile, the delight in Jackie's face, the umpire making sure he touches that damn home plate, the 52,000 people in the stands, the overflow crowd in the stands. That's quite a start. And here's Jackie at his first spring training, playing for the Montreal, actually his first minor league season in '46, playing for the Montreal Royals. That's John Wright. I'll talk a little bit more about John Wright in a minute or two, standing next to him. And there's the Jackie Robinson plaque in Montreal. Now this, I got to Jackie Robinson Park in Daytona Beach, as I mentioned, 2 years ago, down watching some other games. And I would, if you ever get down anywhere near Daytona Beach, I would urge you to go see this park. There was actually a game being played there between 2 historically Black colleges, Bethune-Cookman, which is, of course, named after Mary McLeod Bethune, who lived in Daytona Beach. We're playing Alabama State. And it's true that both teams had white players. And we've been told that in order to fill out rosters, this is sometimes the case. The original park, it's still on the original site, City Island Park, was built in 1914. As you can see, its location there, right near some downtown areas of Daytona, right across this little waterway. It's this picture below is from the 1940s, so it was about the time when Jackie was there for spring training. It's been renovated many times. It's now home to the Daytona Beach Tortugas, the single A team of the Cincinnati Reds. And Bethune-Cookman plays their games there, as I mentioned. Now, you could argue one of the dates you could argue is a day when organized baseball was integrated was on March 17th, a month before his opening day in Jersey City at Roosevelt Stadium. Jackie stepped to the plate for the Royals against the big club, the Dodgers, at City Island Park. And that was the first time a ball player really had worn the uniform of an organized professional white team in nearly 60 years. Jackie was in, though the Dodgers farm teams lived in Sanford, Jackie lived resided in homes of Black citizens of Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach was considered a relatively tolerant place. We know from Jackie's experience in spring training that has been widely discussed and written about that there were troubles in that spring training. There were games canceled in Jacksonville and DeLand, and Sanford was a place that declared that they didn't want those players, any Black players, or his circle of support there. So Jackie lived in Daytona Beach. I would advertise another book This is a wonderful book by Chris Lamb. Some of you have read Blackout, the story of Jackie Robinson's first spring training. It's a terrific, terrific book. At that game where Jackie, the first game when the Montreal team, which Jackie was on at the time, played against the big club, the Dodgers, there were 4,000 people at that game, sitting, the black people sitting in the Jim Crow section. It was overflowing with spectators. But the difficulty that some had anticipated with black and white fans at the same park was not the case. Both white and black fans applauded heartily when Jackie Robinson came to the plate. As you know, Jackie's support system included his wife, Rachel, writers Wendell Smith of the Pittsburgh Courier, Sam Lacey and Billy Rowe of the Baltimore Afro-American. And he had a teammate, John Wright, who, as I mentioned, I'll talk a little bit more later, who I think deserves a little bit more acknowledgement than he gets. So let's go next to Holman Stadium. I might have to get Dan up here to help me with these things.
Yeah.
Oh, I went too far. I told you. Way too far.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh yeah, I only have 5. You think I can do this, right? Oh, Holman Stadium. Anybody been to Holman Stadium? I have already asked that. This is a pilgrimage for me. I've heard about Holman Stadium for a long time. I only live about 3 hours away. It's now the home of Futures Collegiate Baseball team, Nashua Silver Knights. But the park itself pays great recognition, great acknowledgement, great respect to both Campanella and Newcomb, who played there. There are large murals on the supports of the park, and many other indications of their presence and their important presence there. That park has 2,800 seats, and it was constructed in 1937 and been renovated many times. It's a beautiful park, beautiful small park. Nashua, you could argue, and it's be true, that it was the site of the first integrated baseball in the United States. Trois-Rivières and Montreal, of course, being in Canada. Rickey had signed 2 Negro League stars in the spring of 1946, in addition to Robinson and Wright. 25-year-old catcher Roy Campanella from the Baltimore Light Giants, who had already played 9 years of baseball in the Negro Leagues and was 25 years old, started playing for Baltimore at age 15. And 19-year-old Don Newcomb, who was playing for the Newark Eagles in his second year. The 2 were originally headed to Danville of the 3I League, but Rickey was told they would not be accepted there. In fact, I think it was Roy Fairweather was his name, the commissioner of that league, said, we would rather close the league down than have your 2 black players. So the Dodgers, who had 20 farm teams in 1946, chose to send Campy and Nuke to their brand new affiliate in Nashua, New Hampshire, in the reconstituted New England League. Those of you who know New England, in Manchester, New Hampshire, Portland, Maine, Lynn, Massachusetts, Fall River, Massachusetts, Lawrence, Massachusetts, and Pawtucket. Nashua was an ideal landing. If you know those cities, many of them had their own immigrant nature, ethnicity. Many French Canadians had come down to work in the factories in these New England cities. Manchester is a city of about 35,000. And they were embraced, Nashua embraced Newcomb and Campanella unequivocally. And I've read in different sources, I've tried to see if that was just window dressing or not really elementary true. That the Nashua Dodgers had some difficulty in Lynn, Massachusetts on a couple of occasions. But the rest of the league appeared genuinely glad to have them. Newcomb said has said in his own biographical writing, Nashua treated us like royalty. I thank God for Nashua. Buzzy Bavasi, who was the general manager of the Nashua Dodgers at that time, said Campy was so popular, he could have been elected mayor. We know the players Campanella and Newcomb became. Campy has 3 NL MVPs, played in 9 All-Star games, Hall of Fame in 1969. Newcomb was Rookie of the Year for the Dodgers in 1949, was both the MVP and the Cy Young Award winner in 1956 when he won 27 games. He's the first Black pitcher to win a World Series game and to win 20 games. A side note, a footnote for me is he was scouted by Clyde Sutforth from Maine, who's my favorite baseball figure of all, who played for the Nashua Millionaires in 1926. At Nashua, Campy batted .290 and led the league in homers and was a league MVP. Newcomb was 14-4 with an ERA of .221, and he batted .311. Nuke played another summer in Nashua equally brilliantly, having a 19-6 record. There are 2 people we need to mention, and I'll do it very quickly, that were very important. Was Bavasi. This was his first job for the Dodgers. He had just come off 2 years in the infantry in World War II. And he was a progressive man, very progressive general manager. He worked at the highest levels of the Dodger organization for over 30 years. And the other most important figure was Walt Alston, who was their manager. 34-year-old Walt Alston was a player manager. And he was a perfect manager, a quiet man. He's in the Hall of Fame. He was a Dodger manager for 22 years, won 9 pennants and 5 World Series. I have an anecdote that I will maybe slide into the questions and answers, but I need to get to Three Rivers. I'm hitting the right one. Jeez, okay. Let's go to Three Rivers. This stadium has a terrible name. It's Stade Cuillerama. It's named after a bowling alley in town. It was Stade Municipal when the Royals were there. They were the Royals. They won their league. Johnny Wright didn't pitch very well in spring training. He was sent to Montreal, where he didn't pitch terribly well, and then sent to Three Rivers. He spent most of the summer in Three Rivers. Roy Partlow, when Johnny Wright left, Roy Partlow was signed by the Dodgers to be with Jackie Robinson. It was determined after 2 months that Partlow was not the answer as a pitcher, and Robinson was perfectly fine fending for himself. So Partlow was sent. Partlow was in his mid-30s, though he was claimed to be 30 years old. Partlow was brilliant for the Three Rivers team. He was 10-1, and he brought them to the pennant. Johnny Wright was pitching at about 500, and then he went 7-3 at the end of the season. And they came within 1 game of winning the regular season, and then they won their championship, the New England League Championship. Their manager was a man named Frenchie Bourgaderay. Anybody know that from old-time baseball? Californian, played 11 years in the major leagues. He was the player manager there and led the league in hitting and was the league MVP. And he was a man of a very tolerant and progressive nature too. So those players in Three Rivers, the 2 teams in Canada, were great hosts, great places for these Dodgers to land. Just a quick anecdote, a very, very, very quickly, I promise. This picture, well, here's the stadium, right? You see those players right in the front? Those are baseball players. I drove for 4 hours to go watch one of these games. These are college baseball players in the independent, actually it's an independent Frontier League. And this is the Empire Grays team. This is 5 minutes before 1 o'clock when the game was supposed to start. There wasn't a hint of precipitation in the air. This was last summer. Why couldn't I watch a damn ball game in Three Rivers, Quebec? Why? It was canceled. What? Smoke, the forest fires in Canada. So I had driven all that way. I didn't even get to see a game. The Empire Grays are interesting. They play 96 games in the Frontier League, and the Empire Grays play all of them on the road. They're from New York, and they have no stadium. So they play in this league and never play a home game. So I went up there. We had a very nice time. Three Rivers is a city of about 135,000. And my friend and I had a nice meal, and we drove home on a nice day. We did get to go into their museum, which is at the park. That's Yvette. And it's a really wonderful museum. It was worth going just for the museum. Baseball has been in Three Rivers for many, many, many decades. 1970 to 71, there was Cincinnati Reds AA farm team. Ken Griffey Sr. played there, other good players. So it was a worthwhile trip. But it was fun to see these places, which were terribly important to baseball's integration, but not always terribly well acknowledged. So thanks.
Here, we're going to use this mic.
Testing, okay. And where's the tech gentleman? Because what was gonna move us to the other side so they could set up the next presentation.
I think he's.
I think he's coming. We're gonna move out of your way so you can set up the
No,
next.
so I think he wants to do Q&A from here now.
Okay,
So,
sorry to do Q&A. Okay, that's,
no, you're good.
okay, so we're gonna do 5 minutes of Q&A, and then, because it's gonna take about 5 minutes to get
Fine.
everything set.
Tiny, how much
Alright.
time? have
Who
we-
has questions? Carl.
Go ahead.
There was one other integration in 1946. I believe it was in the Border League. I don't know if anybody knows. The player was really a Canadian, an Afro-Canadian who played hockey mostly, but he wound up playing in the minor leagues in 1946.
Do you know what team he was playing for?
I think it was in the Border League, and I'll get it.
See, there was quite a bit of integration. The key to this integration, this reintegration, was it was in organized professional baseball.
Yeah, no, that was what I as well.
Okay.
That was what you had, was the totality. in
Okay.
1946.
Yes. I'm very interested in the California Winter League, which was integrated, a fast league integrated 10 years before the major leagues. Or Cuba during the winter, black and white players playing against one another and with one another. So,
Yes, sir.
I mentioned this morning when we were talking. In Daytona, they had a practice field for the Montreal Royals that was called Kelly Field. And what was unique about that is that it was in the middle of the black neighborhood. And the white Montreal players stayed in a resort hotel and were bused every day the month of March into Kelly Field to play with Jackie Robinson and John Wright, who were living in the black neighborhood in private residences. And Kelly Field no longer exists, and now, thanks to SABR, has a plaque commemorating it. But to think that you would bus 30 white players and the coaches into the black neighborhood, and they did this all without any incidents the whole month. And the Montreal team in spring training played no games other than in Daytona Beach. One's in Jacksonville and
right,
Sanford, they got stopped. The one
Right.
in Sanford got stopped. The one in Jacksonville, they arrived and the field was locked.
Right.
That was tremendous, but Kelly Field was pretty significant to what happened in Daytona.
could I just, one very 20-second anecdote. In New Hampshire, with Walter Alston as the manager, he quickly identified the leadership potential or the leadership ability of Roy Campanella. And he said to his team, if I should ever get thrown out of a game, Campy will take over for me. 5 days later, he got thrown out of a game. So you can win a bar bet by saying, who was the first black manager in organized baseball? And it was Campanella. Alston then went and watched the game from on top of a bus, a school bus that brought the team to the game. And when they won the game, he was so excited, he almost fell off the bus to come out. So that relationship between Campy and Alston is quite remarkable and wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you very much.